Hello class, today we are going to start with lesson 9.6, circles. Today's EQ is how can you create circle graphs? So before we can create circle graphs, we need to learn about circles. I am going to start with drawing a circle. So I have a circle, and now I'm going to label the parts that we need to know in order to work with circle graphs. When you have a center of a circle, and from that center, if you point to one of the endpoints, this is called the radius. Okay, so radius is going to be a segment that starts from one point at the end and one point at the center. Now, for the radius, you have to always start at one point in the center, and then whichever direction you draw your radius, it's always going to be the same length, because by definition, circle will always have to have the same distance from a given point. Now, when you have a line that goes straight through the middle to the opposite side, we call this diameter, and this is going to be represented with D. So diameter is a chord that passes through the center of the circle. It's always going to be double the length of the radius, because radius is half of the circle it goes through, and then the other half, if you have another radius, it's going to give you the diameter. So this one is always going to be twice the radius equals diameter. Now we talked about a chord. So what is exactly a chord? Chord is a segment where you start from one endpoint to another endpoint. So it can be anything. It doesn't have to go through the center of it, but it's just going to be any lines that would meet from one point to another. So this could also be a chord, because you're going to start from one point of a circle to another point of a circle. So these are called chords. Okay, so these are chords. Now, when you have a radius and diameter, you can actually find the circumference of the circle. So circumference is represented by C, is going to be the length around the circle. So it has to be the full length around the circle. It's going to make it like this. So it's a full length around the circle, the distance. So circumference is the distance or the length around the circle. Now, it's important to know the circumference formula, because we have to use this for this lesson. So the formula is going to be important. C is represented for circumference, and we're going to use two different equations. You can use either or depending on the information that you have. So it's either pi times diameter, or C equals pi times 2 times the radius. Okay. A lot of times, if you see it on different places, you're going to see 2 times pi times r. Okay, which is really the same thing. So we're going to use this information to find out the circumference of a circle. Very important. Okay, so for example, let's try. Okay, let's say we have a circle with a diameter of 10 feet. It's a pretty big circle. Okay. So if we have a circle with a diameter of 10 feet, we can simply use the first equation, which is c equals pi times d, to find out the circumference. Now, if you have a calculator with you, you can use a calculator and you can use a pi symbol that the calculator may have. If you don't have a calculator that is advanced enough to have a pi symbol, you can simply use 3.14 instead of pi. If you have a phone, if you put your phone into horizontal direction and unlock the lock button, you're going to have an extended version of calculator which include pi symbol, so you can use that as well. So what I'm going to do is, I have the equation already. I am simply going to plug in pi times diameter. So if you are using a calculator with a pi symbol, then you're going to press pi symbol times 10, or you can do 10 times pi symbol depending on whatever you have, and then find out the answer. If you don't have the pi symbol, just plug in 3.14 times 10, which is going to give you, and actually this is going to be about, I'm going to put a squiggly line, 31.4. Now, if you use a pi symbol, you are going to have numbers that would be continuing more than 31.4. It actually comes out 31.4159. So what you do is you're going to simply round up the numbers. So if you use pi symbol, you're going to have 31.4. What you do is you round up this number. So you're going to have 31.42. Either way is correct. Okay, so you're going to have a diameter of 31.4 about, or 42 as a result. Now what if you have a circle now with only the radius given to you? Okay, let's say the radius of this circle is 30 millimeters. So what you're going to do is you're actually going to use the second equation. Okay, and then you're going to plug in 30 in there. So pi times 2 times 30, which is going to be pi times 60. So again, you're going to plug in the numbers. Pi, which is 3 times 14, times 60. Or you can do pi times 60 with a pi symbol. Okay, it's going to come as about 188.495. So I'm just going to say 5 millimeter. If you used just the regular 3.14, then you're going to have 188.4. I just use a pi symbol, so it's going to be 0.5. Those slight difference are going to be okay. Okay. If you are using, however, a pi symbol, I want you to write pi symbol in your equation. If you're using 3.14, after this step, I want you to write all 3.14 instead of pi on the first line afterwards, so that I know you're using certain number, so I don't mark you wrong if you have a different number. Okay, so should I write that down? I'm gonna write that down. Okay, or you do 3 times 14 times 60, it's going to be 188.4 millimeters. So you have two options that you can work with. Either way is okay. So now that we know how to find the circumference of a circle, we have to learn how to make circle graphs. Okay, making a circle graph is actually not that bad. It actually uses proportions instead of working with circumference. So to make a circle graph, you need to find the measure of each central angle. So for example, if you have a circle, you need to know what these parts are going to be, right? What these parts are going to be, right? So you need to first know a central angle. So the central angle is an angle whose vertex is the center of a circle. So in this case, all three of these different angles are going to be a central angle because it's going to have a central part as a vertex. Now, my drawing isn't completely accurate, so it's kind of off-center, but let's just assume that it's from the center. Now, in a circle, the total degree of this is going to be, so the sum of the circle degree inside is going to be 360 because you make a whole circle from start to end. So when you work with making a circle graph, you are going to look into 360 degrees and also the percentage of your information. You need to have the percentage of the information because for a circle graph, you can't exceed more than 100%. That means you have to have percentage from 0 to 100 filled in inside of a circle. So I'm going to go ahead and give you some questions, examples, so we can start making the circle graph. Okay, so let's say Ms. Park's weekly budget is X amount of dollars. Okay, we don't know how much, but we do know the percentage. So I hypothetically made a budget. Obviously, it's not always like this. I don't really have much budget for entertainment, but so let's say we have entertainment for 10%, food, of course, Ms. Park loves food, so it's going to be 30%. Transportation, I have to drive to places, so that's 20%. And then let's say I save the rest of the 40% into savings account. So when I have this, I have to create a circle graph, but I first need to know that my graphs are going to have accurate measurement for the amount that's going to be created. So what I do is I am going to set up different equations. So my first step is to find out the angle degree of entertainment. So entertainment is going to be represented with E. Okay, and how do I find the angle measurement for entertainment E? First, I'm going to see the percentage, which is going to be 10% of the total. So because the total is going to be always 100%, I'm going to put 10 over 100. If you'd like to simplify this into a smaller number, you can do that, but I'm going to just put it over 100 so I know it's out of a total 100%. And then I'm going to set up an equation with the total angle degree, which is going to be 360 degrees. And then I have to find out the angle measurement for E, entertainment. Once you set up this equation, you can work with cross multiplication. So what you're going to do is you're going to multiply 10 and 360, and then multiply 100 and E, which will give you 100 times E equals 360 times 10, so it's going to be 3,600. What you do is you simply divide both sides by 100 because I want to find out 1E, which is going to be 36. So for my entertainment, it's going to be 36 degrees. For my other ones, I am going to continue doing the same thing. Or if you find out the 10 degrees, which is 10%, which is 36 degrees, I'm going to put 36 degrees here. You can find out the other ones by multiplying the degree into 2 times, 3 times, 4 times, etc. I am still going to just set up the equation to show you how I set it up, but if you are comfortable doing it, you can just go ahead and multiply 2, 3, and 4 to find out the angle degrees. So for my food, I'm going to set up again 30 over 100 equals F over 360, and you do the operation again. So you multiply these two and these two, you're going to end up with, and it's going to be 100f equals 360 times 30, which is going to give you, right, 100f. So f is going to be 108 degrees, which is exactly 3 times 36. Okay, so you can continue doing this method for 1 and 2, finding E and F in proportional ways, or you can find out the 10% and then just multiply if your question is nice enough to give you 10, 20, 30, 40 for your answers. So just to give you the final answer, I'm going to write down transportation is going to be 72 degrees because it's 2 times 36, and then 40% is going to be 2 times of that, so it's going to be 144 degrees. Now, in order to find out if you have the right answers, the easiest way is to add all the numbers. So if you add all the numbers, you should end up with 100%, and if you add all these numbers, it should add up to 360 degrees. So let's say we have a circle graph now available, and because we don't have protractor, we're not going to draw exact measure, but we're going to make it look like it's fair enough so that we can make it believable. Okay, so for I'm going to make a center here. To start from the center, which is 12 o'clock direction. And what I'm going to do is visually, I'm going to measure about a little less than half because I want to make 40%. I'm going to work with the biggest part first because it's easier to divide the parts. And then make it like this. So then it's going to be 40%. For the bigger circle, it's about 40%, and that is going to be savings. So I'm going to put S for savings, and I'm going to put 144 degrees. The smaller 10% is going to be for entertainment, and that's going to be 36 degrees. 20 and 30, I am going to put maybe like this. Okay, so 20% is going to be transportation for T, and it's going to be 72 degrees. 30% is going to be for food, and it's going to be 108 degrees. So I am going to ask you guys to put at least these two information for which item that you're working with and the angle degree. The angle degree is the important part that I need to know because we're, again, not using protractor. I need to see the exact angle degree, angle measurement in order to determine if you worked on your questions correctly. Okay, so let's work on an example question. Let's say people had surveys on blood types of population. Actually, blood types are going to be very different in terms of which one is going to be more dominant depending on your ethnic groups. But let's say this particular population had 40% of type A, 12% of type B, 5% of type AB, and 43% of type O. So type O is going to be the most dominant one, and then type A, and then type B, and then type AB is going to be the least popular one out of all of these. So first, because these are not going to be so friendly with the numbers, we're going to have to calculate the numbers using our equation. So for the first one, we set up the equation 40 over 100 because it's 40%, and then it's going to be A over 360 because we want to find out the angle degrees as A, and then we want to find it out of the total angle degree, which is 360 degrees. So again, you're going to work on the cross multiplication, and you're going to end up with 100 times A equals 40 times 360. I don't mind if you use a calculator to calculate 40 times 360, but when you do that, make sure you write down the steps. So for example, 100A, and let's say you use a calculator and it's actually 14,400. Make sure you write this step so I know that you are actually multiplying. And then the last step is going to be divide by 100. Just get rid of 2 of the zeros. So A is going to be 144 degrees. And then I'm going to just continue setting up the equations for all 3 of them. You can pause it and then try it on your own. Now, when I work with type B, my answer is actually going to be 43.2. We don't want to use the 0.2 here. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to just round it up to a nearest whole number, which is going to be 43. So I'm going to use 43 degrees as my answer. Okay, for AB, I didn't have to round anything up, but I just multiply 5 times 360 and then find out my AB is going to be 18 degrees. Okay, and then last but not least, for blood type O, it's 43%. And again, we established that if you have anything that is in the decimal realm, we're going to round it up. In this case, it was significantly big, so I'm going to round it up to 5 instead of 0.8 and make it into 155. So after you work on everything like this, you just have to make sure that all of these angle degrees, so this one, would have to add up to, okay, must add up to 360. In this case, if you double check, they all add up to 360. And then the important part is we have to draw the circle graph. I'm just going to create a graph on the side here, and I'm going to go ahead and kind of estimate my angle degrees. I don't know how exactly 144 or 155 is going to be, but I have to make sure that 155, which is type O, has the biggest area. So I'm going to start from the center. It's not going to be quite 180, so it's not going to go all the way across, but it is going to be pretty close. And that's going to be my type O, and that's going to be 155 degrees. The second one is going to be 144. It's going to be a little less than half again, so I'm going to go ahead and maybe work like this much, maybe a little less. Okay, and let's say it's a little less than 155. We don't know because we're not robots to know exactly how things are, so that's why it's important to write down the angle degrees as 144, because in reality I may make it larger than 155. And then the other two, 43 is going to be significantly bigger than 18, so I'm going to just make it something like this and put type B, 43 degrees, and this is going to be type AB, which is going to be 18 degrees. So that's how you create your circle graph. So hopefully this is enough to help you understand. If you're not so sure, you can always play this video and also ask me questions. Your homework is going to be from the textbook, page 493, 2 to 18 even. I'll have the pictures available on Google Classroom.